I am the finest engine on the island of Sodor. Probably the finest in the world.
Thomas and Percy enjoy working in the docks. They like the sea air and the sound of the gulls. But one day, the friends were feeling hot and bothered. A crane was causing trouble. His name is Cranky, and this was his first day at the docks. "You're useless little bugs," he called from above. "If you put these freight cars on the inside lines, then I wouldn't have so far to travel." "Rubbish," said Thomas. "No crane has ever complained before." "Well, I'm complaining now." And Cranky banged his load down on the quayside. Later, the two engines met Gordon and James and told them about Cranky. "Stuff and nonsense," snorted James.
"We engines run this island,"
said Henry. "What if a lorry does arrive?" I'm afraid it did, along with two more. Cranky was delighted. "Hey, you down there, your job's done now. These lorries are taking over. One of them wants to talk to you." The lorry was very rude.
"What's that steaming lump of scrap iron doing here? Be off with you!"
"Scrap iron? Steaming scrap iron? Pah!"
Come on, come on! I can go faster than this,"
huffed Gordon.
"Sick me never!"
But Gordon began to feel more and more feeble. And soon, he came to a complete stop.
"What happened?"
His driver and fireman inspected him. "Something's broken inside you, Gordon," said his fireman. "Now you really will have to go to the works." Gordon was still fuming when James arrived to collect his coaches. "Well, well, well, so much for knowing about everything. You got too puffed up in your boiler, so it serves you right." When Gordon returned from the works a few days later, he was still boasting.
"I am the finest engine on the island of Sodor. Probably the finest in the world."
"Come on, Gordon. We're going to the official opening of the new station." Then there was trouble. As Gordon approached the new station, neither the driver nor fireman could apply his brakes. Something had jammed. The driver reduced steam, but Gordon was still going too fast.
"Help me, please!"
"Well, Gordon," said Sir Topham Hatt, "I knew you wanted a panoramic view, but this is not the way to achieve it."
"Yes, sir. Sorry, sir."
One summer's day, Thomas and Percy were idling in the station when Bertie the bus arrived. "Have you noticed something?" said Bertie. "What sort of something?" "Sir Topham Hatt. He, well, seems different," replied Bertie. "I did see him staring at the clouds this morning," said Percy. "I wonder why." The reason was simple. It was Lady Hatt's birthday, and Sir Topham had a new outfit. "It's perfect for my birthday party," said his wife. "You'll look splendid, Topham, dear." "And I'll wear my finest hat just for you," he replied. "Your birthday is a great occasion." "It is, so don't be late." "Don't worry, my dear. I shall be spick and span and right on time." Thomas the tank engine had been working in the coal yards all day. The little blue engine was covered in coal dust. "We can't clean you up tonight, Thomas," said his driver. "There's a problem with the hose pipe." "Bother," said Thomas. "A bath would make me feel much better. The others are sure to say I look silly." But the engines were too busy arguing to notice Thomas. James was talking loudest of all. I deserve a new coat of paint. Sir Topham Hatt says I'm the pride of the line, and... Rubbish, huffed Henry. We're all the pride of the line. It's been like this all day, confided Percy to Thomas. James is getting a new coat of paint and won't stop boasting about it. Why, James? I'm the one who needs a new coat. Look at me. Sir Topham Hatt had heard everything. Silence, he said. I am expecting a VIP, a very important person today. She has heard that all my engines are really useful. Please prove it. Yes, sir, they all said. As long as the gremlins let us. What gremlins? The ones in Gordon's fire, sir. That's why he's not ready yet. I'll see about that, thundered Sir Topham Hatt. And he did. Gordon, I expect you to be on your best behavior today. You are to pull the special coach for my special visitor. But no high speeds, please. She won't like that. Gordon was proud and pleased. He was waiting for his special coach when Percy puffed in with some freight cars. What's the matter, Gordon? You're late.
Driver says there's gremlins in the turntable,
replied Gordon. They must be everywhere, squeaked Percy. At last the turntable was mended, and Gordon puffed away with the special coach. He was soon working hard to make up for lost time. When they arrived, George was rude again. Bumpy ride on rotten rails. I'm glad it's over. So am I, said Percy. Ha! Huffed George. Percy was still fuming when he met Thomas. What's up, Percy? It's George. He makes me feel down. Just ignore him, puffed Thomas. George was now enjoying himself. Ripping up rails, he chortled. What a life! What do you think of this, Thomas? Thomas took no notice. George felt insulted. You're a useless blue puffball. It's an amber lamp, murmured his driver. That means proceed with caution. Who's there? No one replied. Henry crept slowly forward. He stopped by a tree. It had a sign nailed to it, "Beware of the viaduct." The driver was surprised. No one warned us about that before. And look, the signal's red. And the gates are closed. And there's a fogman's coat. But where is its owner? Then they saw a light move within the station building. Ghosts! exclaimed Henry. Edward was right. Stepney, the Bluebell engine, works closely with his friend Rusty. One day Sir Topham Hatt came to see him. Rusty tells me you're in need of a change. So I want you to help Toby and Mavis in the quarry. Oh, thank you, sir, said Stepney. Shall I be away long? Just today. But please be careful. It is easy to get lost up there, so be back before dark. We will, said the driver. Stepney soon arrived at the quarry. We're glad you're here to help us, said Toby. Are these my cars? asked Stepney. Only some of them. There's masses more in the sidings, replied Mavis. Henry was waiting for Thomas's cars.
Pah! You're late. That smell is making me ill.
It's the fish, replied Thomas, and there's danger on the rails. That's why we're late.
Ha! You're the only danger on the rails, Thomas. Now stop wasting time and get your cars hitched to my train.
Thomas's driver and fireman were in the yardmaster's office when they heard Henry's whistle. He was steaming out of the station with his long, heavy train called the Flying Kipper. What route is Henry taking tonight? asked the driver. The coastal run. It's the quickest. But I told you, gasped the driver. That's dangerous for a big engine like Henry. The yardmaster quickly phoned the signalman. Henry roared past the signal box.
I'll soon make up for lost time.
The signalman couldn't hear the warning. By the time he did, Henry was far away in a cloud of steam. But when Henry reached the coastal track, his hopes for a fast run were dashed. Fog floated everywhere. "I can't see," cried Henry, nor could his driver. And when he could, it was too late. Thomas the Tank Engine loves his branch line. One day, when he stopped at a small station, some children looked sad. "They've closed our playground and our favorite sand pit. Teacher says the sand is soiled and too dirty to play in. Please help us, Thomas." "I'll see what I can do," replied Thomas kindly. Thomas hoped things weren't quite as bad as the children had made them out to be. But as he passed their playground, a large sign read, "Playground closed until further notice." The children were right, thought Thomas sadly. The engines on the island of Sodor love holiday time. Percy was taking some freight cars to the docks. Terence the tractor was working in a field close to the line. "Hello, Percy. Nice day for it, isn't it?" Percy was confused. "Nice day for what?" "Mrs. Kindly's daughter is getting married today." "Oh, yes, of course." But when Percy saw Mrs. Kindly, she was standing by her gate waving a red flag. "What's the matter?" asked the driver. One day, Sir Topham had arranged with Thomas the Tank Engine to take his wife and grandchildren to the seaside. The sun shone, and everywhere looked splendid. But Lady Hat was feeling hot and tired. She took her troubles out on Annie and Clarabelle. "Those coaches are old and uncomfortable. Why don't you use them as beach huts instead?" Thomas was most upset. "You won't let them turn Annie and Clarabelle into beach huts, will you?" "Of course not, Thomas," replied his driver, "but I must admit they could be smartened up." "That plane's making a great deal of noise," said Percy to Oliver. "His name's Tiger Moth," replied Oliver, "and it's flying around telling everyone about the fair that's arriving today." "What are you two doing here?" "Sir Topham Hatt wants us to pick up a very special load from the harbor. And I think it's got something to do with the fair." Then they puffed away. Meanwhile, James was collecting quarry cars from the yards. "Dustier and dustier," he grumbled. Then he saw Mrs. Kindly. "She looks miserable." "What's the matter?" asked James' driver. "My sister has rung to tell me she can't come to stay with me. I was so looking forward to her visit." Toad the brake van was feeling sad. Everywhere he looked, he could see engines and coaches moving steadily forwards. They all looked confident and cheerful. One day, he decided to talk to Oliver, the Great Western Engine. "I'm always going backwards, Mr. Oliver. I have forward-thinking views. I could be a leader, if you know what I mean."
You can't be a leader without a train to follow. You don't have a train, Gordon said.
Toad felt sadder still. Oliver wanted to help. "You're a very useful brake van, Toad. You help me brake, and you keep my freight cars in order when we go down hills." The little engines were busy clearing their railroad of leaves and broken branches. Peter, Sam, and Rusty often worked together. One day, Rusty helped Peter Sam to a water tower. Peter Sam felt much better after his long drink, but the freight cars were bored. Let's break away. Their loads were heavy and the couplings old. One snapped. Faster, faster, shouted the freight cars. A sign read slow steep bends and ravine ahead, but the silly cars never saw it. On the island of Sodor, high up in the mountains was a mysterious boulder. It had stood alone for a long time, but one day workmen arrived to build a quarry on the land below. Rusty, the little diesel, met Thomas and Percy. "Where's all this rock coming from?" Percy asked. "The new quarry," replied Rusty. "This mountain rock is good for many things, although it's dangerous up there." "Why?" asked Thomas. "Because of a big boulder. I think it's watching me," said Rusty nervously. "How can it be? Boulders don't have eyes." "Well, Percy, there's something strange about this one." All the engines on the island of Sodor love their work. But sometimes there is too much work. That's when Sir Topham Hatt brings new engines to the island. Salty, the dockyard diesel, is one of these engines. He loves to tell tales of the sea. "We heaved until the old freighter finally caught the tide. It's good to be useful." Salty is excited about coming to the island of Sodor. Islands are surrounded by the sea. Salty loves the sea. Soon Salty arrived at his new job. Brendam Docks is one of the busiest dockyards on all the island of Sodor. It's where ships and engines and cranes alike are busy day and night, every day of the year. But poor Cranky the Crane never gets a nap. He never gets to sleep early. He works all the time. And his only company are the gulls that settle on his arm. So Cranky is always cranky. "Delivering the mail is an engine's job," said Percy grumpily. Percy has many jobs, but carrying the mail is his favorite. It makes him feel really useful. The next morning, Percy was happily pulling the mail train. "Must be on time, must be on time," he chuffed. Donald and Douglas are Scottish twin engines. They're practical, peppery, and proud. They nearly always work together. One day, Donald and Douglas were chuffing through the countryside, hauling a heavy load. Down the line, Trevor the traction engine had been struggling with a big cartload of hay. Crossing the tracks, the cart's wheels had broken off. Then Trevor heard a whistle. "Oh no!" Trevor cried. Donald could see the cart. "Stop!" he cried. Diesel didn't know the shunters had set the brakes on the trucks. The troublesome trucks knew, but encouraged Diesel to push anyway. "Push, push, push!" Diesel pushed, and he pushed, and he pushed. But the trucks didn't move, so Diesel decided to pull the trucks instead. Heave ho, you can pull, but we won't go," sang the trucks. This made Diesel very cross. He pulled, and he pulled, and he pulled. Help! "Grease and oil," Diesel sulked, as the trucks laughed and laughed. Sir Topham Hatt looked down crossly at Diesel. "I thought you would be a proper dockyard Diesel, but I was wrong," he said. "Can you make up for lost time, Henry?" "Oh, yes, sir," Henry replied happily.
Oof. This sucks.
He backed up to the trucks and the shunters released the brakes. Then Henry pulled away as easy as pie. And the engines cheered. Diesel was sent home in disgrace. Percy hoped the signal at the junction would be green. He didn't want to stop next to the mine, but the signal was red. He had to stop. Suddenly, he saw something. "Bouncing buffers!" cried Percy. His driver hadn't seen the old chimney sink into the ground. The signal changed. Percy was so scared, he steamed away as fast as he could. Sir Topham Hatt's engines love their work. Gordon likes pulling the express. Thomas likes his branch line. And Percy likes taking the mail. But none of them likes being a middle engine. It's no fun being stuck in the middle. One morning, Percy was cheerfully collecting coal cars from the smelter yards, where Ari and Bert worked. They liked to play tricks on steam engines. Percy didn't want to fall for their tricks again. But before he knew it, he was stuck in the middle. "Oh, bother," chuffed Percy crossly. "Little green piggy in the middle," Ari teased. Percy's driver was cross. With coal cars in front of him and coal cars behind, Percy had to go slowly. James was in the yards when Percy steamed slowly by. "Ha ha, it's Pokey Percy," James laughed. "You wouldn't be laughing if you were stuck in the middle," Percy fumed. And he fumed all the way to the coaling plant. One by one, he shunted his coal cars onto the tipper's loading ramp and the coal was unloaded. Percy was not allowed to cross the loading ramp until the tipper had been turned off. It was against the rules. But as soon as his driver and fireman left, there was trouble. Henry arrived to pick up coal. He bumped into the coal cars, and the coal cars bumped into Percy. Percy was pushed onto the loading ramp. It is summer holiday time on the island of Sodor. Vacationers come from far and wide to enjoy the beauty of the island. It is the busiest time of the year for Sir Topham Hatt's engines. Thomas was excited. Sir Topham Hatt had sent him to pick up a special to deliver to Dryaw Airfield. "What have you got there?" tooted Percy. "A balloon," replied Thomas. That evening, fog covered the island of Sodor. Everything slowed down, and soon the docks were packed with waiting freight cars. This caused confusion and delay. Sir Topham Hatt came to the sheds. He was in a great hurry. "Henry, Thomas, and Percy," he said, "you must go to the docks immediately." "Yes, sir," they whistled. Then Sir Topham Hatt turned to the big blue engine. "You too, Gordon," he said. "I need a big engine to take the freight cars where they won't be in the way." "Freight cars?" huffed Gordon. He could not believe what he had heard. Gordon wasn't happy to be pulling freight cars. He waited impatiently while they were shunted into place. Hurry up, chuffed Gordon crossly. "Why the rush, Gordon?" asked Thomas. "If I must pull freight cars, then I'll show Salty how an express engine pulls freight cars," Gordon huffed. "Boo! Careful, Captain," Salty tooted. "You don't want to get too big for your buffers." But Gordon ignored Salty. A jet engine goes forward by pushing hot air out of its back, Sir Topham had explained. Just like when you blow up a balloon and let it go, added Thomas. It's very fast. Thomas likes making special deliveries for Sir Topham Hatt. It makes him feel special, but secretly, he wished he could go as fast as Gordon. Just once. Thomas arrived at the docks excited to see the jet engine. It was shiny and modern, and Thomas had never seen anything like it. He couldn't wait to start his journey, but Cranky was taking his time. Rusty is a little diesel engine who works at the quarry on the island of Sodor. Rusty's best friends are Rheneas and Skarloey. Rusty helps keep their line clear. Sometimes, Rusty works so hard clearing their line that the little diesel forgets there's also work to be done at the quarry. One day, Rusty returned late to the quarry. Sir Topham Hatt was cross. "Sorry, sir," Rusty's driver said. "We were helping Rheneas and Skarloey." "I know you like helping Rheneas and Skarloey, but their line is in bad condition. It takes too much of your time," said Sir Topham Hatt. "I am going to shut it down." Rusty was upset. "But what will Rheneas and Skarloey do?" Rusty asked. "They will come and work with you here at the quarry." He had made up his mind. There was nothing Rusty could do. "Lucky for him, but it just goes to show you can't trust freight cars," said Thomas. "Or snow," said Rusty. The men had just cleared the snow away from him when Gordon puffed by with his machine.
Hey, look out! There's snow about!
He stopped by the tunnel and wheezed loudly. Then it happened.
Oh no.
"Help!" cried Gordon. "If Skarloey survived a snowfall, surely a big proud engine like you can do the same," chuckled Thomas. "Paw!" moaned Gordon from within, and then fell as silent as the snow.